We are gearing up for Thanksgiving and it is time to brush up on our turkey skills. I'm going to share all my tips for you to get the perfect bird every time. Let's go. Let's start with the size, which to my dismay actually does matter, at least when it comes to Thanksgiving. The general rule of thumb is you want at least 1 pound per person. If you want leftovers, go up to 1.5 pounds. For those of you who got a frozen turkey, let's make sure that you're thawing it correctly and on time. The safest and easiest way to defrost a turkey is in the refrigerator, which will take about 24 hours for every 5 pounds the turkey weighs. But remember, you don't want this thawed the day of Thanksgiving, you want it ready at least a day ahead of time so you can get it properly prepared. So if you have a 15-pound bird, you want to put it in the fridge on Sunday morning at the latest. Now that our turkey is thawed, the first thing we need to do is open it up. One thing to note here, there is a lot of juice at the bottom of this wrapping. You can keep it or toss it, just make sure you open the wrapping and lift the bird out so that it doesn't go everywhere. Next, take out the neck and the giblets. These might gross you out, but do not throw them away. They will impart tons of flavor to your gravy, which is just as important as your turkey, if not more. Next, we're going to make a compound butter. Butter will do wonders for the flavor and juiciness of your turkey, but for maximum effect, we're going to work some herbs into it, which will infuse your turkey with delicious flavor. So I'm chopping up some sage, rosemary, and thyme, and mixing them into a ½ pound of room temperature butter. I'm taking just under half of that and mixing some salt in, since this was unsalted butter. This is the portion that's going under the skin. That's right, we're putting butter both over and underneath the skin. But that's not happening at the same time. When you dry brine, the skin dries out and tightens up, which is what we want, but will not make this process easy. You can see that I need all the stretch the skin can give to get my hand underneath without breaking it. So for my dry brine, I'm putting salted butter underneath the skin, then generously adding salt to the surface of the skin and inside the cavity. I probably should have just done this on the table instead of on my wire rack, but you live and learn, no big deal. A wet brine, where you actually submerge the turkey in heavily salted water, will also get you a great result, but the dry brine is easier, so I'm sticking with that. This is going in the fridge until we're ready to cook. Typically, people brine anywhere between 12 and 48 hours ahead of time. The more time you give, the better opportunity the salt has to penetrate fully into the meat. The morning of Thanksgiving, take out your bird. While our oven is preheating, I'm taking the rest of the compound butter and rubbing it on the outside of its skin. It's important that you don't stuff the bird with actual stuffing. Why not? Well, as Alton Brown said in his book, Good Eats Early Years, when it comes to turkey, stuffing is evil. Since the turkey essentially acts as insulation around the stuffing, the rest of the turkey will be overcooked before the stuffing is brought to a food-safe temperature. So instead, I'm going to add a halved onion and a little citrus to impart flavor. Yes, I know limes are weird, but I realized that my lemon was kind of funky when I went to use that, and it tasted great, so don't be judgy. Whatever you put inside your turkey, don't totally compact it. You want the hot air of the oven to flow into the cavity. Next, I'm going to tuck the wings under the turkey. This is going to take a little muscle on my part, but it's worth it to prevent burning the wingtips. Finally, we're going to truss the legs. Some people say not to do this, but I just find you get a better shape when you do it. If you don't have butcher's twine, that little plastic thing that came in the packaging will actually do the same thing. Before this goes into the oven, don't forget to add some water to the pan to prevent the drippings from burning. The drippings are very important to the flavor of your gravy, and if they dry out and burn at the bottom of the pan, you won't be able to use them. We're ready to roast, but it is much easier to adjust the racks of your oven before it's preheated. So I wasn't planning on that being a tip, but I guess it should be. Speaking of heat, we are starting with a pretty high oven temperature of 450 degrees. We'll keep that temperature for 30 minutes, rotating halfway through before lowering the temperature to 300. This is going to give our browning a head start. I like to do this at the beginning of the roast instead of the end, because timing when to turn the heat up can be tricky, especially later in the day when you're working on all those delicious Thanksgiving sides. Now this is the point where a lot of people tell you to baste. I'm not going to tell you to do that. Basting doesn't really help with the flavor of the meat. Anything that would penetrate that deep would have needed to be applied during the brining phase. It does help a bit with browning, but what will do that even better is a glaze. To make a glaze, all you need to do is melt some butter, something sweet like honey, maple syrup, or brown sugar, some vinegar, and something salty like soy sauce or salt. Simmer that for a minute or two, brush it on every 30 minutes after you turn the oven down to 300, and you are going to get the best browning you've seen in your life. This 15-pound turkey took about 3 hours in the oven. If you skipped the high heat method and kept your oven at a more traditional 325 degrees, it would take approximately 15 minutes per pound. So this would have taken about 3 hours and 45 minutes, but the only real way to make sure your turkey is done and not overcooked is by using a meat thermometer. Of course, you can use a standard instant read like this and check it periodically, but I like to use a probe thermometer so that I don't have to open the oven to see what's going on inside. You want a reading of at least 170 in the thigh and 150 in the breast. That's right, 150 degrees. Multiple tests have shown that, especially with a roast this size, between carryover cooking and the sustained time that will hold this temperature, there is essentially no risk of foodborne illness. Ethan Jablowski actually has a great video explaining the science behind this, so check that out if you want more detail. If you're short on time and can't wait 3 hours for a turkey to cook, you can spatchcock it instead, which is a method where you cut out the backbone and flatten the bird before cooking. This is really a time saver and can get your turkey done with less than an hour in the oven. Check out this video for the method if you need to go that route. Okay, so now we have our fully cooked, beautifully glazed turkey looking like a Norman Rockwell painting, so now you just need to let it rest. How long? Gordon Ramsay had a really interesting story about the chefs who mentored him.
They made me rest the turkey for as long as I cooked it. So I cooked it for 3 hours, and I rested it for 3 hours.
I'm not going to ask you to do that long, but you really want an hour at the very least. This is going to allow the juices and the steam being held inside the bird to get reabsorbed back into the meat. It's also going to let the turkey cool down before you carve it, which makes it much easier. While you're waiting, you can get the drippings out of the pan for your gravy. That is the key for its flavor. When it's finally time to carve, do yourself a favor and do not do this at the table. Carving a turkey can be a pretty hands-on, somewhat messy process. It's just better to do it in the kitchen. I'm not going to get into the details of carving in this video, mostly because I'm not particularly good at it, but that doesn't matter because of how we're going to present this. Once you have all those nice slices of turkey set up on a platter the way you want them, the last thing to do before you bring it out to your waiting guests is to put something green on it. I don't care what it is, just anything green. It could be sage or rosemary or any other herb you have extra of. These aren't even herbs. They're the tops from the carrots I used in my mirepoix. Instant upgrade. And that's it. You did it. A beautiful turkey that can get covered in delicious gravy and share a plate with your favorite Thanksgiving fixins. I hope you found some tips in this video that will help you on your big day. If you have a tip that wasn't featured here, please leave a comment below and let me know what it is. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time.